are panicked about it. But as you'll see today, all of us are going to need to go through these stages in order to come out stronger and better on the other side. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before I get started, I just want to remind you that you should be following the hashtag JTTalksJobs on all your favorite social media channels. That way you can get the recordings of any videos we've done. Also, you'll be able to check out our new podcast, which we have live on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Great way for you to get caught up on all of our episodes and all the timely information that we're putting out on a regular basis. So be sure to follow JT Talks Jobs, the hashtag, and go check us out on our new podcast by the same name. All right. So I want to get down to the business today of talking to you about the 5 stages of career grief, something that's very important. As I've mentioned to a lot of you on the show, this is my 4th recession that I've been through, and this is probably going to be even more staggering than that. So I graduated in one in 1990. I then was in HR and recruiting during the .com bust. I was literally out in Silicon Valley at that time. I was around for 2008. That's actually when I started my career coaching practice and the whole Work It Daily site and community. And now fast forward to today. And so as a professional, I understand what people are going to go through right now, what's happening in their worlds. And I want to prepare people as best they can because we will get through this. Just like anything, any kind of loss, we will get through this. And there's an opportunity to come out stronger on the other side. But the only way we're able to do that as effectively and as quickly and as efficiently as possible is if we understand all the stages we're going to need to go through to get there. So that's what I want to break down for you today. So as we get started with this, there's one thing that I want you to think about. And that is that job loss and change will absolutely impact each one of us deeply and in very different ways. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of layoffs going on right now, and the immediate individuals that we think about, and rightfully so, are the victims of the layoff, the individuals that lose their jobs. But they aren't the only people that suffer. Obviously, their extended family and friends and people that they care about suffer from this, especially if they're dependent on those workers. But on the other side, you need to know that this is not an easy decision for employers. This is extremely stressful. If you're a leader of an organization and you are having to let people go, you are not stomaching this well. It is so hard. It's the whole process. As someone who's been through many restructurings and has helped companies through restructurings, I've done this for a living. I just know there isn't a single person that is in a good mood or feeling okay about the necessary steps they're having to take to keep the business alive. And I think it's important to note that right now, that the decisions to lay off are so that the business will survive, so that people will have jobs. So we have to think about the burn rate. And if the company is going to go out of business, instead of losing everybody's jobs, they have to think about how can we save as many jobs as possible. And that's what's going on right now. That is not an easy thing for those individuals to do. On top of that, you're also talking about the individuals that survive the layoff. So the people that have to stay on. Now, think about that. They have to stay. They're feeling terrible that they got their job, but other people didn't. And then they get piled on with work because someone has to do all that work that was left by the individuals that were let go. So now you're so stressed out in the job and you've got twice as much work to do. So again, nobody wins in these situations. And that's why I keep talking about this idea of deep loss and the fact that we just have to recognize that as a society, we are collectively going to go through stages of grief over this. Now, you might be going, well, JT, why are you being so negative? It doesn't seem so bad right now. People seem to be making the best of it. Okay, well, that's where we need to start to break down the 5 stages of grief. And when you talk about going through them, keep in mind that the sooner you can go through each one, especially that first one I just talked about, where you're saying everything's fine and everything will be okay. As soon as you go through each one after that, the faster we'll get to acceptance. And when you're in acceptance, you will be in a position to take advantage of opportunities. Because as I said, on the other side of this is going to be incredible opportunity. There are so many companies that become $100 million, even $1 billion companies that come out of something like this. And we don't even know what those are yet, but I promise you they'll be out there and they'll be hiring. And so exciting times are ahead. It's not all negative. But again, we've got to get through those stages of grief to even get there, to even see the opportunities and to go after them. Now, just so you know, point of clarification, I've based the career stages of grief on Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. This is a very well-known model. If you were to look it up on the internet, you would see the 5 stages of grief. Today, I'm just going to talk about them in the context of job loss or job change so that you can understand them. So let's take a look at the first one, which I already hinted at that you probably have. It's called denial. And we have millions of people right now sitting in denial. And denial is a good place to be because it's keeping the negative thoughts out. So we say everything's going to be fine, positive attitude, let's have gratitude, let's recognize this, let's just stay happy, right? We're just going to stay positive. Positive mindset, we can do this. No negativity. Typical and natural and normal thing for us to do. And lots of people are in denial mode right now. It's just how it is. And so I'm not trying to tell you not to feel it, because the one thing you need to know about the stages of grief is that you have to feel every single one. I'm just telling you, if that's your mindset right now, this is where you are in the process, but there are more stages to go. Eventually, we're going to move into anger. So when denial wears off, when you can't keep your energy level up anymore, when there's so much perceived bad news coming at you, so much negativity, and a real fear of loss of power, or a fear of I did something wrong, that's when people get angry, because what they say is, I don't deserve this. I did everything right. I did what they told me to do. And they being, society and what everyone expected of me. So we have a lot of people that will quickly roll into that, right? So people who have lost their jobs, for example, and now it's rolling on, and there are no jobs to get, and they're struggling to make ends meet, very quickly, they're going to go from denial into this very strong emotion of anger, which is a natural and normal reaction. Human beings, we've heard fight or flight. So it's a natural, human instinct to either run for cover, which is denial. And when you can't deny anymore, right? When you can't shy away from it anymore, it's time to fight. You come out swinging. And so that anger is going to be prevalent. And we're going to see a lot of pointing fingers, a lot of blaming, a lot of angry talk. And this phase, again, you can't not go through it. But for all of my job seekers out there, it's really important that you minimize your contact with people and with social media during the anger phase, because it is the one phase that people will remember most about you. We remember negative more than we remember positive. And I've had lots of people going through this process get stuck in the anger phase, and everyone they talk to is taking the brunt of it. And every time they talk about work, they sound super angry. People remember that. And if you recall us always telling you that 80% of all jobs are gotten via some form of networking, people are going to be far less likely to refer you and recommend you if they know you're still sitting in the anger phase, for fear you're going to blow up on somebody, on their colleagues, on their friends, or whatnot. So you've really got to be careful in the anger phase. You've got to get through it, but you want to try to get through it as privately as possible. You want to have just maybe 1 or 2 people that you're venting to, and you even want to limit the amount of time you give yourself to go through that. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. You have to pick. Are you going to give yourself a day or a week? I would say never more than a week. Ideally a day, maybe 2, to just allow yourself to be angry and understand, on this date, at this time, I am done being angry and I'm moving myself forward, because it is not doing me any good. In fact, if you were on our broadcast last week, I had the author of the new book, It Takes What It Takes, Trevor Moawad, on, and we were talking about this idea of neutral thinking. And his concept is so powerful, because he said, look, you can't go from negative to positive automatically. It just doesn't work that way. I'm not suggesting that, but you can go from negative to neutral. And that's what I'm talking about here. You've got to get yourself to neutral thinking as quickly as possible so that you can get through that anger stage. It's very, very important that we focus on that. All right, speaking of next phases, let's talk about the bargaining phase. So once we get past anger, then the fear actually really starts to kick in. And we say, okay, this is uncomfortable. I don't like how this feels. I need to get out of pain, out of anxiety as quickly as possible. And so the way I'm going to do that is bargain. Just tell me what I need to do. Anything I need to do, and I'll do it. You just map it out for me and I'll do it. Because where the fear is coming from is the fact that we can't figure this out for ourselves. We haven't been able to come up with a solution. This is where we really start to feel handcuffed. We feel like a victim who is saying, okay, I don't even care if I made mistakes. I'll take all the blame. This is my fault that I got here, but just fix it. Tell me what to do to fix it. And we see a lot of people go into this desperate mode. And that's a challenge too, because while you're open and saying that you're willing to do new things and seek new advice and try new concepts and explore new options, you're generally doing that in a rushed feeling. And you're doing it thinking, I need a quick fix. So we see a lot of people in the bargaining phase trying to take shortcuts because they just want to get out of pain. And the problem with the shortcuts is they don't really get you the results that you're looking for. And that becomes a problem. So let me give you an example of somebody in bargaining phase. So somebody in bargaining phase might say, okay, I've decided in job search, it's my resume. My resume is my problem. Nobody's contacting me. I'm applying online. Nobody's responding to me. It must be my resume. That's it. Okay, I accept it. Tell me what to do. All I need to do is fix my resume. So then they'll go and they'll spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars, which, just saying that out loud makes me sick to my stomach, on a resume writer. Now that resume writer knows you're in pain, knows you're in bargaining mode. That resume writer also knows that what you need right now is to think that you look better than you did. So it doesn't matter whether or not that resume is going to land well on a recruiter. It's more important that that resume make you feel better about yourself. So I've seen lots of resume writers, not all of them, but lots of them create these big, long-winded, multi-page, subjective resumes that make you sound like the greatest thing ever. The problem is recruiters are wise to that. They can tell when somebody's had their resume professionally designed. So you immediately lose points on that. And secondly, they're so self-absorbed, they come across as narcissistic and desperate. So now the resume doesn't work. Now imagine how angry this person is because they've spent a lot of money. They thought they identified the problem. They rushed through to get something in hopes that they could get better results. They go out there, they use this so-called new and improved resume, and they don't get any phone calls. They're not any better off. Which when this happens, when people in bargaining phase do knee-jerk reaction kind of stuff like that and try to throw a lot of money at the problem, that's a problem. Because when you spend a lot of money like that and it doesn't work, it's going to lead you to depression. So now you've been bargaining, you've been trying to quick fix it, you've been trying to throw money at it. Now you just go into depression. What's wrong with me? Something must be wrong with me. Okay, this is my fault. And this is when people get really down on themselves and they look back in time and they rewrite their entire career story about all their failures. Literally in their head, every mistake they think they've made. Now, I'll be honest with you folks, I don't know anybody that's intentionally ever made a career mistake. I think we all work with the data that we have at the time. We make the best decisions we have at the time. And then as time passes, we're able to look back and see, did it work or didn't it? Did we get the outcome we were looking for or not? Unfortunately, in the depression phase, most people are looking at everything saying, those were all mistakes. It's all my fault. I'm a failure. This is a really rough phase in the process. And it's the one that people can spend the most amount of time in. This is when they say, there's no point in doing anything because the outcomes aren't going to change. You know, this is all my fault. I'm a failure. Why would I try again? It hurts too much. I'm going to give up. And we see people go through depression for a long time. Now, in the career world, this means they're probably not looking for work as aggressively as they should. If they do get lucky and say land an interview, they're not overly excited for it because they just assume they're going to fail. So of course, that negative mindset, they do fail, which now confirms for them, see, I bombed. I knew I would bomb. And they put themselves in this vicious negative mindset cycle, which can be very hard to get out of. But eventually, if we're lucky, this person finally gets tired of feeling sad, of feeling depressed, of feeling helpless. They get to a point where they realize this just isn't going to work anymore. I can't stay like this. I can't feel like this. And we get to the fifth and final phase, acceptance. The nice thing about acceptance is there's no high or low in your emotion. So if you think about it, in denial, the first one, you're really high trying to be positive. Then in anger, you're really low and you're totally furious, right? Strong emotion. Then in bargaining, it's kind of back up. It's positive. I can do something, but it's very, very anxiety driven. Then in depression, it's very, very low again. So as you go through these, you can feel really a little bit emotionally unstable because you're just going up and down and up and down and up and down until you get to acceptance. At acceptance, you go, you know what? I can't change what happened. I made choices. Things happened in the world. These were the results. I had expectations and I was emotional because those expectations weren't met, but I shouldn't have had those expectations. Oh, by the way, this is all behind me. I can't change it. All I can do right now is just take a deep, relaxing and cleansing breath, accept what's happened, and focus forward and look for opportunity and just want to find something new, do something that feels positive, right? Just get in a new direction in some way. I can tell when people are at acceptance, especially when they've lost their job or their job's been changed. If they've been fired from a job, not just laid off, but fired, people go through all these phases as well, right? It's layoff, all of it. But I can always tell when somebody's in acceptance. I've done this for over 15 years now. And one of the things they're able to say to me is, you know what? I own it. I own everything that happened to me. Now that sounds crazy, but keep in mind, when you say I own it, you take the power back. When you say things were out of my control, you play the victim and you can feel it and sense it and see it in somebody. When somebody is in acceptance, they own it and they say, I own it and I'm not going to beat myself up for it because it happened and that's it. Let's move on. This is what I need to do now to move forward. And so that owning it's very important because in recruiting and HR, we're told to try to understand where somebody is with any of the challenging experiences they've had in their life. So it's very typical for us to ask you, why do you think you got laid off? Why do you think you got fired? Why do you think you're in this position? Think about that. Can you imagine being asked that right now? Because a lot of you will be asked this. They'll be asked, why do you think that happened to you? How you choose to answer that question is going to tell me volumes about where you are in the process. And as you can imagine, employers want to hire people that are in the acceptance phase who have learned and who have grown from the experience. That's why when you go into Work It Daily, we teach you something called the experience, learn, and grow model for answering questions. Because when it's a way to take yourself through the stages of grief, especially when we ask you like the biggest mistake you've ever made in your job, right? That kind of thing. You need to walk me through the experience, what you learned and how you grew, how you're going to make sure it doesn't happen again, how you've accepted what happened and how you're using it to your advantage. You can't use it to your advantage until you've accepted it, folks. This is the reality. So those 5 stages, you can't skip them. You can definitely get stuck in one for a longer period of time. But the sooner you work through them, the better, because the sooner you get to acceptance and you can move on. Now, really quickly, I want to mention that if this is sounding good to you and you want more information on this, tomorrow we're going to be hosting a live free webinar and it's called Laid Off and Looking. So anyone here today that is affected by a layoff or thinks they might be, or if you know somebody that is, be sure to check out the link that we're posting for you right now so that you can attend Laid Off and Looking, because I promise this is going to be a really in-depth tutorial on job search strategy when you've lost your job. There's strategy and there's tactics. Tomorrow, we're going to give you, in fact, we have a downloadable PDF that you follow along with. We're going to take you through the 6 steps that you need to take to get your strategy very clear, very concise, so that you know exactly what you need to move forward so that you can be extremely efficient in your job search. So again, Laid Off and Looking. Be sure to check it out and sign up. And if you can't attend live, that's okay. All you have to do is sign up, and that way we can send you the recording afterwards, okay? Awesome. All right. So now that we've gone through the 5 stages of career grief, I want to give you 3 tips. In order to cope with these, move through them as efficiently and effectively as possible, first tip I've got to tell you is to go on a negativity diet. When you are dealing with some form of grief, like job loss or job change, it does not help to have all these extra things around you that are negative, like negative and toxic people, negative and toxic television, internet, things that you're reading online, music. Last week, Trevor, our guest, was talking about country music. And while it's so catchy, a lot of the older country music has these very negative, sad storylines to them. And that affects us, folks. When we hear these things, we internalize them. So put yourself on a negativity diet. You need to greatly reduce the people and the things that are throwing negative at you, because it's just keeping you in that darker place. And instead, try to flip the switch and keep yourself surrounded by positive people, positive information, good tools and resources that empower you. That's going to help you. So definitely a negativity diet. Tip number 2 is called the Pomodoro Technique. So this is a technique because when you're in these stages, especially when you're in something, denial, for example, anger for sure. Oh, what the heck, all of them for that matter. It can be difficult to want to do the things that you need to do. So, for example, if you lose your job, you know that you really need to do some research on the latest resume format and what works for you. You need to get your LinkedIn profile updated. You need to get a decent cover letter pulled together. You need to interview prep. You need to build a bucket list of employers that you want to target for your networking. These are all the basics of a job search today, just so you know. Now, that can feel completely overwhelming. With the Pomodoro technique, what you do is you set a timer, grab your watch, grab your phone. If you have the little timer, that works too, for 5 minutes, and say, I'm just going to work on this for 5 minutes. But I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times throughout the day. So you don't have to spend all your time focused on your job search. But if you were to take 3 or 4 times you spent 5 minutes, that's 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes there. And if you did that every day, Monday through Friday, all of a sudden you'll have several solid hours of work tied to the task that you need to do. Now, the other kind of cool thing about the Pomodoro principle is something that we've also learned in fitness over many years, group fitness. For example, all you got to do is just get people there, get them to put their sneakers on and say, spend 5 minutes. Because once you're doing it for 5 minutes, you're usually in the zone and going, I can go longer. I can stay longer. I can do more. Same thing applies here. When you say, look, if I'm really not feeling it after 5 minutes, I am completely entitled to walk away. But if I am in the zone, I'll keep working a few more minutes. This is how this technique tricks you into doing more and can help you get through the stages of grief that much faster. Now, my third tip tying off of that Pomodoro technique is to make a streak. It's funny. So the phone app Snapchat, right? Kids are always trying to do streaks, which means they're snapping, which is posting, just so you know, day after day after day, and they don't want to break the streak. Okay. I challenge everybody to do a streak when it comes to your career growth and your development and your job search. That's why we're called Work It Daily, because I truly believe you don't have to spend hours. If you just spend 10 minutes a day, but you do it every single day, that streak helps you build hours, helps you build habits, helps you build up your knowledge and your experience. And all of a sudden, you are way farther ahead than you thought 30 days later, right? A week later. So my advice to you is not only 5 minutes, but say, I'm going to do this every day and I'm not going to break. Get a calendar, reward yourself. If you make it a week, give yourself a prize. You make it 2 weeks, another prize. Build it, make it a game for yourself, whatever you have to do in order to continue to take action every day. Because we find that people that take action every day, what happens is you get results. Right? You get new information, new insights that can pull you through the stages of grief much faster, much, much faster. So make sure that you plan to work it daily. I promise you that'll make a difference. Okay, I'm going to be taking some questions here. I can't wait to get your questions regarding the 5 stages of career grief. Before I go any further, just a reminder though, be sure to join me tomorrow for the event Laid Off and Looking, where I'm going to take you through the 6 steps that you should use to build a really cohesive, customized for you, personalized strategy for you to attack your job search so that you can be efficient and get back to work as quickly as possible. In my experience of doing this over 15 years now, I can't tell you how many people come to me and they think they've been looking for work and they haven't been. It's months, 2 months, 6 months. And when they sit down and learn what it really takes to look for a job these days and to win and to get a dream job, they look and say, oh my gosh, I haven't been looking for work, have I? And the answer is no. So tomorrow, we're going to talk you through that. This session is going to be all about understanding how to dial in your job search, especially today, because school has taught us everything except how to do this. Be honest. Nobody has taught you job search, especially how much it's changed in the last couple of years, in the last couple of weeks, given everything that's going on in our world. So I hope you join me, because I promise you're going to leave with a lot more confidence than when you start. I promise you that. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I can't wait to take some questions from everyone here today. regarding these stages of career grief. So let's start with Eugene over on LinkedIn. Hey, Eugene. Would you recommend to jump on a new career journey if you have a stable job right now, or is it better to wait until the crisis is over? That is a fantastic question. So if you have a stable job right now, folks, I would not advise you to switch careers. If you absolutely know that you can have this job through what's happening, I would stick with it. So much is uncertain right now. And when you move into a new career, if anything happens in that organization, you will have the least amount of tenure and the least amount of knowledge, which means you're most likely to lose your job first. So as hard as it is, and as much as you want to move into a new career path, as a coach, I can't just advise you to jump like that. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. What you can do is to continue to study for that industry, continue to network for that industry, stay in touch, do whatever you can to build up your skills so that as soon as we see signs of life and we know it's going in the right direction, you can make that switch. But for now, for sake of solid conservative advice, the advice is to stay put. And I know that's so hard to hear, but I promise you, you can still do other things in order to keep yourself engaged and excited so that you can make that transition in a safer time. So Nancy's asking, how do you know if you should use a service like yours or if you really need live one-on-one career coach? That's a great question. So folks, Nancy's asking about the difference between Work It Daily and traditional career coaching. I was in traditional career coaching for many years. So what you do is you pay a career coach hundreds of dollars to sit and have a one-on-one session with you. But think about that. You both have to schedule a time. It has to fit both of your schedules. And then you have to sit down and get everything you need done in that hour. Do you know how many times people came to me and they really weren't in the right state of mind in order to do it? Or they would go through the session and then I wouldn't hear from them for a month and they'd come back and they would have lost their momentum and they didn't do anything like we talked about. So I actually found traditional career coaching extremely frustrating. When I look back, I realized that people didn't need 1 hour of my time. They needed 5 to 10 minutes of my time several days in a row, several weeks in a row, maybe several months in a row. So they needed ongoing access to me. And that's what really planted the seed for Work It Daily, which came out of the last recession, for those of you that don't know. So in the last recession, I found all these people that needed career coaching. They obviously couldn't afford the hundreds of dollars that I was charging for a session. And I thought, how do we get them one-on-one coaching? And we realized that technology was the answer. If people could direct message a career coach and get their question answered, a coach could help a whole bunch of people, and that coach could make the best use of their time while also giving people what they needed. So to answer your question, you're always better off starting with us. We're the cheapest you will ever spend on career coaching. And there's a reason people aren't leaving us. Because once they get sighted the platform and realize how convenient it is to 24/7 access to go in, whenever you have a question, whenever something pops in your mind, you can message that career coach and know that somebody is going to get back to you, right? That's huge. And it's all one low monthly fee, or even cheaper if you buy an annual subscription. We are cheaper than one session with a career coach one-on-one. So I don't know why you wouldn't try us first and see what you think. Get a monthly subscription, try it for 30 days. If it's not working for you, you can always go and upgrade to a more expensive traditional coach. But I mean, based on my experience, people love our platform and they don't leave because of the convenience and the price. Not to mention, we have a lot of people that have worked with career coaches one-on-one and gotten nowhere, come inside our program, and within a month, competing job offers. So a lot of these coaches out there, they don't have the courses, they don't have the tools, they don't have the technology, they don't have the live sessions, they don't have all the things that you need to truly make change. You cannot make change in a vacuum. You need courses, coaching, and community. It's called the 3 C's. And most coaches can't offer you that. So there's my advice. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain by working with us first. And if it doesn't work out, then you can upgrade. Awesome. Okay. Quintella asks, I wonder where I fall in the 5 stages of grief. I was laid off over a year ago and everything is on hold for even longer. Is there a stage for between hope and depression? I'm constantly between the two. Oh my gosh, Quintella, great question. Many people vacillate in the stages of grief. It's not that you're between stages. It means that you are going back and forth between them, right? So it sounds to me like you're going back and forth between bargaining and depression. So you're right here in the bottom of the curve. I hate to say it. So it's hard and you're depressed. And then there are days where you get up and you go, I can do this. If someone just tells me what to do, I can do this and I'll feel better, right? And then you try something and it doesn't work and it swings you into depression again. Very typical place to hang out. So the solution to that is for you to get on a plan where somebody has you doing something every day and is showing you that you are making progress. Even if it isn't necessarily in you landing the job, it's that somebody is showing you that you are making measurable progress, that you're checking all the boxes and that you have the things you need. You need somebody to make you feel accountable. You need somebody to validate for you. You just need that person to lean on so that you don't feel completely alone. So that's how you're going to push yourself through bargaining and depression. Now, that can be finding a job search buddy if you want to find an accountability buddy. But I will tell you, that's exactly what we do at Work It Daily, right? That's why you come in there and you join a bunch of like-minded professionals and get the coaches to help you moving every single day in the right direction. So somehow, some way, you need support because you are feeling completely alone and you need to get out of that cycle. All right, Amanda says, you said something about having a good answer during an interview about why you think you were laid off. What would be a good sample answer? Yeah, so we do a whole session on that. We have an entire course on that, Amanda, called Fired to Hired, and we walk you through that. One of the techniques that I teach everybody is anytime somebody asks you a difficult question like that in an interview, why do you think you got let go? Why do you think you got fired? Why do you think you were part of the layoff? The first thing you need to say, take a deep breath, is say, that's a good question. And the reason you say that's a good question is they think your immediate reaction is, again, they're going to see how you emotionally respond. So if you respond with any sort of severity or negativity, or, you shrink back, anything like that, they know that you are not through the stages of grief. But if you can look at someone and say, that's a really good question, it was a powerful experience for me. Not negative, powerful experience for me. Then what you're going to walk them through is exactly the events that led up to you being let go. And you're going to use the facts. You're not going to say, well, it wasn't my fault that this happened. You're just going to say, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and it led to me being let go. Just the facts. You're going to state them. You're then going to say, this is what I learned from that. If I could do it all over again, this is what I would have done differently. This is where you're going to take that accountability. So if I could have done it all over again, when I saw that the company wasn't hitting its numbers and the economy was turning, I would have turned up my job search sooner because I would have realized that we were probably going in that direction. Or I would have looked for more work to take on so that I, could have maybe been more indispensable to my boss. You're going to have some answers to say, this is what I've learned. So they can hear how you know to self-correct and learn from situations, challenging situations. And then say, going forward, I really have an appreciation now for companies that are fiscally sound, that operate, on their budget, and that really try to make good financial decisions. I can see now why that's so important. And that's why I'm so excited to be interviewing at your company, because I know that's what you're about. So see how you've grown. So you always need to follow a process like that. Now, obviously, no two people would answer this the same way. And what we teach you inside Work It Daily is how to write that answer out. You can send that answer to our coaches. They'll review it and say, oh, that doesn't sound right. Or, oh, you might want to say it this way so that it lands correctly. But it's always going to follow that same framework. I'm really glad you asked that question. It was a very powerful experience. Let me tell you what I experienced, how I learned, and how I grew, and how I've come full circle to you today, right? When you follow those steps, you get much better reactions. You really do, because they know that you're in the acceptance stage. They know that you've mentally walked yourself through it. Nikela says, what if you're accepted it and you're focused forward and you keep getting that rejection over and over and over again? So first of all, I want to know what's happening that you're being rejected over and over and over again. Because just so you all know, the average person takes in about 10 rejections before they get hired. So that's a lot. And that's just normal. So if you've only gone through 2 or 3 rejections, my advice to you is you just keep going. But if you were to tell me, it's been 10 or 20, and if you were also to tell me, hey, it's always happening when I get on the phone screen, or it's always happening after I go to the in-person interview. Well, if we saw a pattern after 10 or 20 times, then we would know to dial in and work on that particular area of your job search. In fact, it's really interesting. We do live trainings every month. So there's always a new training when you're a member of our program. There's always something new you can be a part of. And we do them in the last 3 weeks of the month. Every day they're recorded so that you can watch them at your leisure. But next month is all about where you're getting stuck in the job search process. So somebody like you, if in fact you've been rejected 10 or 20 times, you would be a perfect candidate for that, because we're going to try to dial in your process and look for the patterns. But before you say that, make sure that you have in fact hit that much rejection, because that's the new norm, right? We're all businesses of one. We're selling ourselves. Salespeople take rejection all the time. And the most successful salespeople just play the odds. They just know that as long as I keep getting rejected, but I keep going, I will eventually make that sale. And that is no different to any one of you out there that are job seekers. It's just a lot of us don't have the thick skin needed. And that's why we need a better strategy, so that we know the things that we're doing are helping us get better and improve in our job search, so that we can get those results. Tom says, for those of us that have lost a job, would your advice also apply? Look for a similar role in industry and look to make the career change after. Yes, Tom, yes, with a little asterisk, I guess. So if you know that your industry is going to rebound and there will in fact be jobs in your space, I would say continue, because that's going to be your quickest hire. But I need to be honest, some of people are losing their jobs and their jobs will never come back. So companies are laying off right now, but when it's over, they're not going to hire everyone back. Their business models are going to have been deeply changed. They'll probably hire back some people, but not all of them. And they'll probably also look at new things. So if you feel like you're in an industry that's not going to rebound, then I would start looking at the career change, right? Because at this point, you're not working anyways, and you could get into that new field sooner than later. But if you are actively in a job and you know it's not going anywhere, it does make sense to stay in that for the duration. Hopefully that distinction made sense. Andrew says, prior to the crisis, I was about to enter a new career in real estate. Yesterday, I was furloughed by Macy's. What would be the best strategy for me? So Andrew, you are a great candidate for a little self-assessment. I think we have to understand what you did at Macy's, and we need to know what your unique gifts are, your unique strengths, and how you like to add value. So one advice I would have, and by the way, folks, all of our free resources are over at workitdaily.com/resources. The one resource I would have you go to first is our career decoder, because it tells you your personas, your workplace personas, which are how you like to add value, how you like to be, to do things to get compensated, if that makes sense. And there are 8 personas. And when you know your top 2 or 3 personas, you can start to piece together the types of careers that would be a good fit for you. There's also a lot of other self-assessment you can do on yourself to understand your communication style, your work style, your learning preferences, your unique gifts, your passions and interests, your priorities. These are all things that we teach in the professional strengths course. Once you've been through those, you have a coach look at them and go, okay, so now let's dial you in. So Andrew, it might be time to make a career pivot. Real estate might be perfect, but this might also be a good time to confirm that real estate's the right career. Instead, you may want to say, look, I'm going to take those skills from Macy's, the things that I like to do when I was working at Macy's, and I can see 3 or 4 other new career options that would fit that. That's what I would be looking at right now. Then from there, you could start to really dial in and talk to people within your network, within your local area about these new types of roles to get a sense of whether or not they would really play to your strengths. That is something, again, no one teaches us in school. I mean, I wish I could do a virtual hand raise here. How many of you literally had that kind of attention paid to your strengths, your preferences, so that you could figure out what kind of career you matched? Nobody. We all just were supposed to figure it out by ourselves. And so that's why we don't improve and grow in our careers. That's why so many people end up in dead-end careers and change careers multiple times, because they've never had that deep self-assessment. There is a reason why pro athletes use multiple coaches. Those coaches see what they can't see in themselves. There is a reason why most executives use performance coaches. Again, they see the blind spots they can't see in themselves. The average person has never been given the opportunity to be coached through their blind spots and to help them elevate their strengths. So this is a prime opportunity for anybody that's been laid off. This is a prime opportunity for you to figure that out. In fact, in our Laid Off and Looking webinar tomorrow that we're doing, that's what we're going to talk about in the strategy. How do you figure that piece out? Because so many people just don't know what to do next. So how do you build a strategy? How do you know what companies to apply to? How do you know what jobs to go after if you don't even know who you are, what you want, and what would work best in the current market? If you don't know those things, you can't go to market, so to speak, right? You're a product, you're a service. You can't go to market with your service if you don't know these things. And so that's what you want to figure out. And I would definitely encourage you to take the time to do that if you can. Oh, Laura says your platform is the least expensive and most effective I've ever seen, and I've been a career counselor. Thank you, Laura. That's what we aim for, Laura. We are trying to disrupt an industry. I am not kidding. You always hear about that market disruption, industry disruption. I have a real issue with traditional career coaching. It is old school. It does not work. When you've got technology like we have, and you are able to take this to scale and give people the level of career coaching they need at a fraction of the cost, right? So I'm so grateful to technology and moments like these where we can show people you do not need to pay an arm and a leg to get the help you need. Crystal says, how can you identify a good fit with a recruiter? I'm starting to feel like a number. I've been out of work since December of last year. So, okay, first of all, everyone should understand that a lot of recruiters are about to lose their jobs. So we went from a time of such low unemployment that recruiters felt they couldn't find talent and everybody was a number to them and they were just rush, always trying to find new candidates, to a lot of them are about to lose their jobs if they haven't already. So a lot of that's going to change, and only the best recruiters will stay in recruiting. These are people that are really relationship driven, really know their stuff. They know how to assess you. They know how to market you. They know how to read their client, which is the hiring managers. Recruiting is a skill. It is a real skill. And so situations like this weed out all the recruiters that lack those skills. So that's going to change. So a lot of you who were dealing with unprofessional recruiters that were ghosting you, recruiters that didn't know their stuff, that they were dropping the ball, that's all going to die. They won't last, but the best recruiters will. So the upside to this is if we come out of it and we start to do the hiring again, you'll be working with really senior and qualified recruiters, and that will get much better. So as far as knowing how to work a relationship with a recruiter, I keep mentioning this, but every time you all ask a question, we have a course for it. Literally, we have a whole video series called Make Recruiters Come to You inside Work It Daily. And what we teach you is the right steps to network, to reach out to them, to establish a rapport with them by understanding their needs, right? If you think about it, you're selling them, not the other way around, even though they're pitching you. So you need to understand what they need from you in order to build that relationship. And that's what we focus on. And when you learn how to do that, you can build much stronger relationships, especially when it's with a good recruiter. Ronell says, I was interviewed on March 16th. I haven't heard back from the hiring manager, even though she said she had no reserve in putting me in the position. I've already reached out 4 days ago, but nothing at all. Any idea? Should I move on? It's not that you're moving on. Just understand that all hiring is in pause mode. Unless a company is in dire need of adding to staff, which we've seen that, Amazon, some of the food stores, healthcare, the places where, this crisis is causing an uptick, every other type of job is on hold. And most companies aren't hiring until the dust settles because they don't know what their operational costs are going to be. They don't know, it's very wrong to hire when you're laying off. See what I'm saying? Or if they find out they're not going to make expenses, how can you possibly hire someone only to turn around and lay them off again? So don't think that it's out yet, but what I would do is just leave it alone. You reached out 4 days ago. If they want you, they will find you. They know how to find you, and they will. Right now, I wouldn't push anymore, because if you reach out more, it's going to look desperate and pushy, and they don't have answers, and then you're making them feel bad over something they have no control over. So I would continue to look. I would move on in the sense of you need to start thinking about other opportunities and just assume that is over, but I wouldn't touch base with them anymore. They'll come to you when the time is right. Let's see. Does Myers-Briggs personality help find careers paths? No, it does not. It doesn't. I am actually not a big fan of Myers-Briggs. And the reason for that is that there are 16 different combinations. Who the heck has time to understand 16 different combinations? It's too complex. Too complex. We have a much simpler test over on Work It Daily. If you go to our resources page, communication style quiz, it'll show you that you're one of 4 types. We built that knowing that that would help us understand what kinds of roles people would do well in. It's also part of our professional strengths assessment. So Myers-Briggs, too complex in my opinion. You need something simpler to understand so that you can piece that together. So look for simpler techniques. Much, much more important that you do that. Excellent. Let's see. Melanie says, I'm in total grief and kind of depression in my new career at 63 years old. I trained for it and I actually really was totally having such a hard time getting a position, but now I realize I have to accept that I'm in a high risk category by age and a pacemaker. And now I realize I might not be able to do this work at all, facing the fear of money, time, energy, on and on. Okay. So Melanie, first of all, if you were here with me, I would give you a big old hug right now and tell you, take a deep breath. Look in my eyes right now. Take a deep breath, Melanie. Here's the thing. If I was to go back and circle everything you just wrote me, it's all, I can't, I failed, I didn't, I've got this problem, I've got that problem. That's what you're dialed into right now. And that is creating such a negative energy in your body. Your brain can't think of anything positive. See what I'm saying? You're taking your reality and you're putting a negative spin on it. That's just an objective person looking. So that's the first thing I need you to do. I am not going to tell you to be positive. I just need you, Melanie, to get back to neutral. So let's talk about what you do have, Melanie. You have experience. You have a passion for something, right? You have knowledge. You know who's hiring for this skill set. You know that it's something you want to do, okay? Those are the things we have to move forward on. And you have to ask yourself, not what can hold me back, but what can I do to move myself forward? So all the positives that you have, as well as the fact that you can keep reaching out to employers and talk to them about this, about why you're so passionate, why at 63 this became a passion of yours. You know, this is the story you need to tell. People need to hear your energy. They need to hear your enthusiasm for this, your belief in it. You've got to be able to maintain more of that state and less of the I can't, it's going to happen to me, I'm going to fail, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It really is. If you believe you can or you can't, you're both right. So really work on that negativity right now. I would advise you to write out everything that you wrote that made you afraid, and then I want you to rewrite it. I want you to rewrite it in a neutral way. And if you are struggling to do that, and if anybody else listening to this is struggling to do that, you need help with that. Because this is what I mean about being stuck in the stages of grief. You need someone to help you rewrite what's going on up in here, because if you could do it by yourself by now, you would have. So it's time to get some help, whether you want to reach out to a trusted friend, maybe you know somebody in your industry that you really admire. You need to sit down with someone, whether you join Work It Daily, because we do this every day with our clients, and say, how do I rewrite the script? Again, we have an entire course on rewriting your career story. Right now, the career story you're playing in your head is a negative one, and that's what's holding you back. We've got to get this rewritten in a way that gets your brain looking for opportunity, not roadblocks. Because what you look for, you find. So you can do this, Melanie. You got this. You came this far. Don't give up. Let's rewrite that career story, okay? Let's get ourselves to a neutral place so we can keep the doors open and look for the opportunities, keep our anxiety levels in check, right? And just live in the moment now, not in the negative what if, but in the moment now and the what if of positive possibility. That's where we need to sit. And I know you can do it. You wouldn't have asked the question. I know you can do it. Nita says, I've received emails from potential employers explaining that they received my information. However, they're pausing moving forward due to COVID-19. Should I respond to their email? Absolutely. Yes, most definitely. Message them and say, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to respond to me. That means a lot. I know there's a lot of stress going on. I can only imagine how difficult it is for you all. I am absolutely interested. Please keep me in mind. And I hope that you and your extended family are safe and healthy, right? And that's it. Absolutely. Show them your character. Show them that you care for them. They were kind enough to message you. You absolutely message back. Definitely, definitely. All right, folks. Wow, where did the time go? This was great. Did you find this helpful? I hope so. Again, folks, none of us are going to get around it. We're all, myself included. There are things happening to all of us right now. We are all losing something. And with that loss comes the cycle of grief. But I can tell you from experience, the sooner you can allow yourself to feel and move through these things, and the more help you can get to pull yourself through them, the better off you will be. So I hope that this was a source of inspiration for you. For those of you that are laid off or think you're going to be laid off, please come check out the free webinar tomorrow, Laid Off and Looking. You'll be able to download the PDF. It's a 4-page PDF that walks you through everything that you need to do, both strategy-wise and tactic-wise. And tomorrow's session, we're going to work specifically on the strategy element. I'm going to walk you through 6 things so that you can dial in, personalize, and optimize that job search so that you can get better results faster. Okay, so I cannot wait to do that session tomorrow. Hope to see a lot of you there. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for stopping by. Another episode of JT Talks Jobs on the Books. And remember this, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily.